Although immigrants have come to the US from all over the world, overwhelmingly the largest number have come from Mexico. 1 in every 4 immigrants in the US are from Mexico. So clearly, whenever the national debate turns to the topic of immigration, the southern border comes into focus. Now, as a historian, it's very important to acknowledge that not all people of Mexican descent living in the US are, or were ever, immigrants. Remember a little thing called the Mexican-American War? Up until 1848, about 1/3 of the land that is now part of the US was part of Mexico, and it was populated by indigenous and Mexican people. So when the war ended and we forced Mexico to cede us that land, as if they had a choice, the people living there came with it. In fact, Mexican people living on that land had to deal with massive immigration from white Americans coming onto their land as we moved westward in the second half of the 1800s. New settlers violated Mexican-American property rights, knowing that American courts would support their claims over historic Spanish grants or indigenous communal lands. Many white settlers would just squat on the land until courts gave them the property rights, at which point they then sold the land to speculators and investors back east. Now, a lot of these practices were validated by the government when they passed the Homestead Act. In 1862, this act gave 270 million acres of land away to settlers for free if they agreed to settle and work that land for at least 5 years. Of course, some groups resisted this incursion. One, nicknamed Las Gorras Blancas, or the Whitecaps, raided towns in New Mexico in protest of these Anglo-American squatters. In some places, especially New Mexico, where there was still a sizable Mexican-American population, they were able to gain some influence in the government. However, for the most part, Mexican Americans became slowly outnumbered and were pushed down the social ladder. And this, of course, was worsened by the fact that gold was discovered in California in 1849, just 1 year after the end of the Mexican-American War. That must have been infuriating to be the Mexican government and realize that you had been sitting on a literal gold mine all this time only to lose it to the US. So since the 1800s, immigration from Mexico had been constant and relatively unmonitored. Since, especially in the West, there were many people of Mexican descent who had always lived there, family members might cross the new border to join them. The Border Patrol wasn't even founded until 1924, and for the most part, its job was to prevent the entry of banned groups like the Chinese. Mexican immigrants were typically seen as beneficial to the economy, especially working as seasonal farm workers. Then the Great Depression hit. To be continued, follow for part 4.